Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna, and on behalf of the Mindalia TV team, welcome to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather daily to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today with us, Angel Ribo, CEO, consultant, TV host, international public speaker, and president of the Wisdom for Kids Foundation, is going to be co-hosting with Dan Blanchard. Dan is a best-selling and award-winning author, speaker, and educator. They are going to be bringing Mr. Abraham Chamie. Mr. Abraham taught high school mathematics for 23 years and coached and officiated college and high school wrestling. Before starting with them, we want to remind you that Mindalia's mission is to share the level of consciousness around the world, share information that can raise the level of consciousness around the world. Sorry about that. And you can help us by subscribing to our channel, leaving us a positive comment down the video, or sharing it with someone that you know that is gonna benefit from the content that we're gonna be developing here today. I don't know what's going on today with my speech, but we'll keep going. And before starting, we want to ask you to collaborate with Mindalia with your own valuable content. For that, you can go to our website. On the top, you're going to find a link that says Collaborate with Mindalia. That link is going to take you to a form that you can fill out, and our technical team will be getting in contact with you. You can collaborate with Mindalia in English through Mindalia TV English, Portuguese through Mindalia Televisao, and Spanish through Mindalia Televisión. Remember also that you can participate because we are live streaming right now, and you have the active chat, the screen that you're going to be seeing here on my side and under the video in case that you are following us from a smartphone. You can interact, you can enter your questions that will be kindly answered at the end. And please use the format word question in caps before the actual question that you have. We're not going to delay this any further, and we want to leave you now with Angel, with Dan, and Mr. Abraham. Thank you guys for being with us. Welcome to Mindalia live streaming. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Mirna, for this wonderful introduction. And welcome back, Dan. How are you today?
Well, Angel, thank you for having me on the show again. We always have a good time here.
Yeah, typically, I have this emotion of feeling of joy, but today with two wrestlers, two masters of wrestling on the same conversation. Oh my God, I think it's more like fear. So no, it was obviously just a joke. It's obviously sports are a privilege and a wonderful way to live someone's life. So thank you for inviting someone like Abe here today.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Angel, me and Abe are gentle giants of the sport. Isn't that right, Abe? Right, two of the gentlest and kindest men you'll ever meet. Right, Abe? Okay, they can't.
Oh, okay. Now, excuse me, you were muted.
As I was saying,
that's good.
Me and Abe are two of the gentle giants of the sport. Two of the nicest and kindest men you'll ever meet, right, Abe?
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for being on the show today with us, Dr. Abraham Chamie, who also goes by the name of Abe. Angel, Abe's an amazing man. 32 years ago, he refereed my state championship wrestling match in Connecticut, and 31 years ago, he did it again when I won my second state championship.
Absolutely.
And me and Abe have been able to stay in touch over the years. And Abe has just been such a role model with what he's done in the educational world, what he's done in the refereeing world. And for all you wrestlers out there, you're looking at the man that was beating Dan Gable. Dan Gable got lucky, right? At the very end. Dan Gable, if you don't know who Dan Gable is, he's one of the greatest Olympic wrestlers and Olympic wrestling coaches ever. And Abe was beating him. So that goes to show you how amazing Abe is. Abe's been a high school teacher many years, wrestling coach on a lot of different levels. And he loves to have a cup of coffee with me every once in a while. And I'm honored for that we go out and have a cup of coffee. And I can't wait, Abe, for the conversation that me, you, and Angel are going to have about maybe building better men and the things that we did to become the men that we are, and hopefully the things that can help the men of the future. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. So So, Abe, if you can give us a little background, I know I just kind of did a real quick one, but if you give us a little background on who you are and kind of maybe a couple of things that helped you become the man that you are.
Well, much like Angel, I've watched some of your interviews. I'm from immigrant parents as well, with no education. I grew up in the Dearborn, which is one of the high Arab communities in the country. I was very fortunate to have comparative brothers, bigger than I. I'm the shortest. My other brothers are all 6 feet. So I think that made me tougher for a lot of reasons, academically as well as athletically. But I always wanted to teach. That was my aspiration. But as always, things happen, and education did not allow me to make a living for a family. So I went to corporate world. So I taught for about 17 years, went in corporate for another 23, moved up to being the manager of training internationally for Otis Elevator. So I put on major programs around the world. And then I returned back for 10 more years in a high school. And what I will say about that is, the nice thing about teaching is if you love the classroom, you're most comfortable there because you make a difference. And when you can get students to go from not liking something to not being afraid of it, you made it tremendous leeway. And that's what I've done over the years. As far as athletics are concerned, I think they made me stronger. They made me more balanced. To this day, I still work out every day. It keeps me grounded, and I enjoy every day.
Yeah. So there's so many things that we could talk about, Ethan. I mean, you're so skilled and knowledgeable and talented in so many different things. And we've had some great conversations over the years in Dunkin' Donuts about, trying to be good men and trying to help others become, good men, through education, through sports, through doing difficult things as well as that. And like I said, there's so many different ways we can go with this conversation. So I'm definitely going to give you some leeway to kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. We're just going to go whatever direction that is. And I know one of the things that we were just recently talking about was birth placement. And I remember reading something that made a lot of sense to me. It said if you go back throughout history, and if you look at the fastest runners in the world, Bolt, I mean, it just goes on and on and on the list. You're going to find that there's a very high percentage of those fastest runners in the world were the baby of the family. They were always trying to keep up with their older siblings.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it made them fast. And 30 years later, when they're full-grown adults, they're the fastest people in the world. So I thought it was interesting what you were saying the other day about the birth placement and how it affects sometimes the person you grow up to become. So can you touch on that just a little bit?
Well, I think the pecking order in sibling rivalry is always there. I do know I have 4 other siblings. 2 brothers were older than I, and 1 was younger, and I have a sister. But the older ones tormented me, and it made you stronger. There was no opportunity to fail. And I've said to Dan before, when I was coaching, when I'm teaching, failure is not an option. I tell my students that way. I tell my athletes that way. I said, I'm not going to let you fail. If you do what I ask you to do, follow these points of growth, you will get better. You will be better than you think you are. I will push you. But you never make them feel that they can't do anything. In fact, something that I told Dan about, I applied this at the corporate level. I used to do it in teaching. I'd find out where they were in their family, how large the family was. I'd find out if they're the firstborn, secondborn. I'd make comments like, I'm going to tell you right now, last year, nobody other than brown-eyed students got A's in my class. And they look at me, and I look at my eyes like I'm looking at you, Angel, and they say my eyes are brown, and they look at me, and they would think, oh, my God. And I wouldn't say anything for weeks. Then we start statistics, and I would relate to them. When I said that, I wasn't telling a lie. It was true. It just happened. They all had brown eyes. They could have had 4 toes. So then I would say, by the way, the ones who were 3rd in the family, middle child, got the highest grades. I was a middle child. So we would get them to think about family, pecking order, achievement, and whether they could grow from that or not. And one of the things I told Dan about sibling pecking order, Angel, you have brothers and sisters, I assume?
Oh, absolutely. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother.
And where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the second after my elder sister.
Okay. I did a study in my dissertation about all the variables, demographic that go into being accepted to the Coast Guard. I followed it for 4 years, affecting leadership, who got promoted before others. Then I took it into the officer corps. I followed another 5 years, and then 5 years after that. The only variable that proved leadership was individual sports. And that I found out of the individual sports, many of them were firstborn. So it's a correlation, it's a predictor, but I won't put my life on it, of course. But I will tell you that Dan and I've talked about that. I've asked Dan about where he got his tenacity. Part of it is from older siblings.
Yes, absolutely, Abe. I had an older brother that was tough as nails. You know, big, strong. You know, most of the kids in the neighborhood in my town didn't think he had the capacity to feel pain. You know what I'm saying? So he was a very, very tough kid, and I had to live with him. And as brothers do, you know, of course, we got into some fights, and some of them turned into fist fights. So if I was going to survive growing up, I had to become tough. Now, I wasn't the first one in my family that found the individual sport of wrestling. That was my brother. You know, he found the individual sport of wrestling, and he kind of laid the way for me, and which was awesome because I just kind of watched what he did, you know, listened to what he told me, and then I went out there with that tenacity that you know I have, Abe, and I became better than my brother. You know what I'm saying? Better than my brother and tougher than my brother on the mat. You know, and then we always had this ongoing joke for the rest of our lives, Abe, you know, where every now and then we'll be out somewhere and my brother will say, "Hey, want me to beat your butt?" And I'll say, "Dude, want me to throw you on your head?" Like that, you know. So we still went back and forth for years. You know, it was like terms of endearment, of course. You know what I'm saying? Like just kind of like jokingly threatening each other. You know what I'm saying? And it was just one of those things. So you know, I think about like that, you know, the siblings, where you are in the order. I was in the middle, which in some ways I think made me the mediator of the family. And now all these years later, I'm still that mediator in the classroom, you know, between kids that are, you know, maybe not where they should be with their social emotional skills and their social emotional learning. And they're quick to fly off the handle at each other. You know, they're not very good at delayed gratification. And there I am, you know, playing my role all over again. Seems like it never stopped, of being that mediator. You know what I'm saying? I found myself in that as like a teacher, you know, as a coach. You know, sports are a little bit different than they were in those days. You know, in those days, Abe, I mean, people didn't skip practice. You know, no. They knew that no excuse was a good excuse, right? So today we get some of that, but all I got to say is, even though it's different today, you know, thank God there's still some good men like you, me, Angel, that help our youth that may be struggling some. And thank God there's still sports and individual sports such as wrestling. You know, there's others, you know, the boxing. Heck, I had a kid many years ago that did figure skating. Believe it or not, I mean, that was the only sport that he could focus on with his extreme ADD or ADHD. And it really changed his life for the better because it was an individual sport of figure skating. So all I got to say is thank God we still got those individual sports out there, even if we're not maybe looking at them the same way. I mean, you go out there now and you look, and I was at a wrestling match over the weekend, and some of the weight classes, they were forfeited. You know, so like not all the weight classes are full. You don't have as many kids going out for it. It doesn't seem like it's as demanding as it was before. Coaches now have to accept some excuses, whereas we never accepted excuses, you know, before. There was no excuse was a good excuse. So, with all that said, all I was going to say is thank God we still have it, because I believe that if you did your study again, Abe, all these years later, you would probably still find the same correlation. Wouldn't you think so?
I agree. I think there's a lot of things the same. In fact, something that triggered a thought. As I said, Angel, I had taught for some 17 years and I went to corporate. Well, my plan was to always return to the classroom. I did that in corporate. I used to love to get in front of a group of adults. We'd have things to engage them. And I had an interview for this job, same school I taught before in Connecticut. And I had gone through the interview and the superintendent looked at me and hesitated. I said, what's the problem? She said, I'm really concerned. You've got all these degrees and you've been in corporate world and you've been out for 23 years. Children have changed. And I said, you've got fallacious reasoning. Well, of course, that probably killed my job. She said, pardon me? I said, it's fallacious reasoning. You're making the assumption that I've never changed.
Oh.
And then she said, oh. And she said, well, we have to discuss finances, how much we're going to pay you. I said, I'll make a deal. I know you're going to pay me on the high scale. You're going to feel uncomfortable paying me on a PhD level. She says, yes. I said, who am I replacing? She told me. I said, I'll take his salary. And if I can't prove in 1 year that I'm worth it, you've got a piece of cake. You've saved a lot of money. But if I prove that I've done a better job because I feel after 23 years in corporate, I'm bringing more to the table. She says, agreed. A year goes by. I have all these classes I taught. I come back in the fall. All my classes are full. Every one of them. She walks in. She doesn't like math, she tells me. I bring her to my class. I start to instruct her to the board, doing things, engaging her. She's having a great time. And she says, as she leaves, I have to go see some other administrators. I said, fine. And I said, what about our conversation? She said, it's done. See my secretary. My point is, you've gained confidence over the years. Wrestling did that for me. Failure was never an option. We would fail by competition. As I told Dan, on that day, on that moment, I lost. That's life. What am I going to do after that? What I told Dan something about the classroom, I taught math. Angel, how many people do you know that say, I don't like math? Right? That comes up all the time. I have trouble. Mm-hmm. One of the things I told, I did this when I first student taught. I would give them tests. I would ask them what's fair. They would then tell me, and I put it on the board. I said, that's the test. I would then give them the test. I'd alternate the rows so they wouldn't have the same test, but I'd put names at the top, like Angel, or Connecticut, or Florida, or Dan, a name that's completely extraneous to them. They weren't allowed to put their name on the test. They said, well, how am I going to remember it? Well, you're now Angel. When you get the test, I'll call Angel, take the paper. And they were dumbfounded. They said, what is this guy doing? And I gave it back. I said, oh, by the way, when I return a test, I make mistakes on purpose. So you need to look to your neighbor. If I gave him 10 points, they gave you 7, you better look over. So what I was doing is telling them, I'm evaluating your math, not you as a person, your math ability. But by the way, when you ever get a test back and it's a low grade, you shut down. Now you have the opportunity to do better by looking at your neighbor. It's surprising how fast they learn that I'm there to help them and that they can make mistakes and still go forward. The caveat of that is you have September through June. Come April, if my wife would come in, the others would tell you, around March or April, I have assignment sheets for like 20 of them. I tell them the very first day, if I die tonight, you do the next assignment. So they know what to do. Comes April, they know the test is going to be tomorrow, or today is say Monday. The test is going to be Wednesday. So tomorrow we review, test is Wednesday. So they say to me Monday, do you have the test made? I said, absolutely. He says, we want the test tomorrow. I said, what? We want the test tomorrow. I said, what do you mean? He says, we're ready. I give them a test. They do very well. End of the semester, I give them, the end of the year, I give them an evaluation. I said to them, by the way, forget the paper evaluation. What do you think about the class? They said, oh, you got easy. You really were easy. You're a piece of cake. I said, no. You were here. I was here. You're now there. Next year, tell me how well you did. And what's happened, they took control. So the idea was, as I told Dan, you're focusing on them, breaking down barriers, making sure they can do anything that they want to do. And I think that's part of what I've always done in coaching, in corporate. It works very well, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So Abe, I mean, you got your doctorates, you know, that probably puts you in the top 1% in the world, possibly with the educational thing. You were beating Dan Gable. You were like next in line to be in the Olympics. You were made it to the top of the world in refereeing. I think you probably got inducted to the Referee Hall of Fame. You know, you did great in the classroom. You went in there and you did a fabulous job with, with kids that felt your warmth and sincerity and love. You showed up in my speech when I was giving the American Federation of Teachers. You know, quite a few times you pulled up on your Harley Davidson motorcycle, in an hour to come have a cup of coffee with me over by, you know, near my school instead of making me go to you. I mean, one of the beautiful things about you is that you were so like top of the line, but you never make people feel like you're not like even with them or friends with them. You never make anybody feel like you're better than them. And you obviously do that in the classroom, and you obviously do that with our youth too. And I know today's youth, you know, today's youth may backtalk you and say, who the heck are you? You know what I'm saying? Like you're a nobody. And it's just like, whoa, like I'm up here, you know what I'm saying? But of course you wouldn't say that.
No.
So you've always made me feel very warm and very very welcomed into your life. And you've gone out of your way to be in my life, to add value to my life. I mean, like, how do you do it? How do you, and what advice do you have for other people who have, let's say, are succeeding in life, to not look down at today's youth, but to meet them where they're at? I mean, just the other day, maybe it was like a week or two ago, you know, my students said to me out of the blue, they said, hey, mister, you know what? We don't give you all sorts of problems. And I work in the, you know, school, the alternative school with a lot of expelled kids. And they're like, and I'm like, why? And they're like, because you don't ever like look down on us like you're better than us. You know what I'm saying? So how does someone who has climbed the, you know, the corporate ladder as high as you have, and every other ladder anywhere in sight, how do you like put yourself on their level, meet them where they're at, and not look down at them? And what advice do you have for others that are working real hard to climb the ladder, but don't look down at today's youth, because they're not going to respect that?
That's a difficult answer. It's difficult to answer that, because it's only, I can answer it from my standpoint. I've always said, don't forget where you came from. And everybody's an expert in something. And one of the things that I've probably done more than ever is I never take myself seriously, but I take a lot of pride in what I do. So if someone says you didn't work hard enough, I get upset, because why do they think that way? So my feeling is I can get something from somebody. If I can draw it out of something, I grow. I grow better. I succeed more. So I just feel that, yeah, I have all these degrees I have accomplished, but what do they remember when it's all said and done? I think we already know the answer. Yeah. They don't remember any degrees. They don't remember. I tell them, you're going to know math, but that's not what you're going to remember. You're going to remember you had a good time and you're not afraid of math. In corporate world, one of the things, Angel, you travel around the world, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm not exactly what you call a WASP. I'm Lebanese, and I travel around the world, and I remember I had a program at Otis Elevator called Otis University. We take the top 25 executives, soon to be executives, we glean them. We put them through a program for a year, and I'm responsible to run this. We have them in field, in engineering, and in sales, manufacturing. So we give them all the best practices. So we have graduation. We're having it in Shanghai. Here a kid from Dearborn, Michigan, going to Shanghai, immigrant parents. I show up, and the president at that time of China, Otis, said, please do not hug my people. We do not hug. I said, I can do that. So I understood. I respect that. So the president was in as a dais. They'd shake hands. He'd say, so-and-so up, they shake hands. The next one would shake hands with the owner or the manager of the program, manufacturing, sales. And then I'm the director of the whole program. They shake my hand. Well, the first one was Japanese. He did, shook hands, went the other one, and he reached over, we're 6 inches from the floor, he reached over and grabbed me and hugged me. And I okay. I looked at the president, I said, I'm in deep trouble, right?
Yep.
So the next one was from South America, in Brazil. He did the same thing.
Of course.
The next one did the same thing. They all gave me a hug. They didn't hug the president, they didn't hug the manager of the program. So the program's over, we have all the awards, and the president looks to me and he nods, and I said, yes, I understand. So I walked over to him, he said, I want to see you in 5 minutes. So he comes back in 5 minutes, he said, I just talked to all my people. And I asked him why you hugged him. He said, he's honest. And I looked, he said, he's honest. Whenever he says he's going to do something, he does it. He doesn't play games.
Yep.
Overseas, if it's 3 in the morning his time, we'll get it. Next day, he does everything you want him to do. He's honest. So the president reached over to me and he hugged me. Now, I tell you this for one reason. This is the way I was raised. Be honest.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bright, but I can't remember when I lie. So I tend not to lie. And I think that has come back from childhood. Dan, to answer your question, I am what I am because if I was raised, all these things are just things. I'm lucky to have achieved those, but I had the president to give as you know, you don't work with President Angel, right? Our president, Steve Page, was going to be in Shanghai to give a presentation. There's a president. So a week before, I met with him, and I said, you have 5 minutes to talk. He said, what? I said, the vice president is going to say this. What do you want to talk about? My boss said, how can you talk to the president that way? I said, because I don't want to be up there and look foolish. If he wants to talk something, the VP already did. So he said, fine. So he did that. But then he reminded me what I did to him when I first met him. He was our new president. And I was giving this, as I said, for the 100 people for the first time in November. They all came to Connecticut. I had them all in front of me, and I turned to the two vice presidents. Would you like to introduce Steve Page? They said, oh, no, you do it. I walked 15 feet away from them back to the dais with a microphone. And this, see if it triggers your thinking. I said, all of you know what's been happening in our election. We don't have a president yet. It doesn't make any difference. We have Steve Page. And I introduced him. That's when George Bush was in the problem with Congress and whether he got elected or not. So Steve Page said, you're good on your feet. I like that. And from that point on, to your point, Dan, it was always a matter of being honest. If I made a mistake, I can't backtrack. I know I did it wrong.
Yeah. So
beautiful. Let me ask you, hey, gentlemen, let me ask you something because I'm really like, I have to ask you this question. It's a burning question. You know, I'm originally from Spain, from the northeast of Spain, close to Barcelona. And wrestling is really not that popular in Spain. It's really not. Mm-hmm. So when I came to this country and my kids get involved in the school system, obviously they always, well, at least my oldest one was, you know, offered wrestling, but we are in Texas, so he preferred, you know, football. So he was, you know, middle school and high school football. But I've always perceived, because I've always liked to watch, you know, competitions, high-level competitions and Olympics, and it was very, very involved in Barcelona Olympics, by the way, myself personally. So it's a twofold question. So number one, what do you think wrestling, what kind of young man does wrestling attract? That's one question. And the second question is, the young men that stay in wrestling, what do you think they get out of it?
Dan, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, for me, it was my brother did it first. So I think wrestling absolutely attracts a lot of little brothers of older brothers that are already wrestling. But at the same time, so what attracts these older brothers? I would say the challenge of the sport. You know, many of these older brothers, you know, maybe they're already think that, you know, that they're tough guys or whatever. They want to just challenge themselves and see what they can do, you know, out there. So I would say maybe the challenge. It definitely attracts the older brothers. And then the little brothers just kind of fall in step with the bigger brothers when they watch it. It's a hard sport not to fall in love with because there's such a companionship. I mean, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters from other families that you didn't even know last week. They're patting you on the back, giving you a hug when you win or when your boy wins, you know, if you're an adult. So there's such a cohesiveness there and such a family-like atmosphere there that you can't help but fall in love with the sport. So, of course, the younger brothers are going to wrestle. And just real quick, what do they get out of it? Well, again, I mean, Abe mentioned the tenacity that I have. So I would say I definitely got the tenacity, or the tenacity that I already had was strengthened in the sport of wrestling. You know, I learned how to get up early, work extra hard. I learned how not to complain that I already worked out once today, that I knew I had to work out twice a day or 3 times a day when most kids are struggling to maybe go once. You know, I learned that I couldn't lie and say that all I had was an orange last night, but somehow today I come in 3 pounds over. There's a real punch in the gut with the impact of the decisions you make in wrestling. And you can't lie to your coach. You can't lie to your teammates. You can't lie to yourself. I mean, even the parents and the fans in the stands, they know that you didn't eat just an orange last night. And every one of them know that you're overweight, that you didn't make weight for today, and that it really hurt your team, and that you didn't do your part for the team. So it puts a huge responsibility on your shoulders, and you got to man up. If you don't man up, you're not going to make it in wrestling. You know what I'm saying? You're going to go try to hide somewhere in a team sport. But in wrestling, there's not, as being an individual sport, there's nowhere to hide. You know, you got to man up. So, you know, in the older days, you know, so many of our young men went to the military, and the military made men out of our boys or very young men. Today, I think the individual sport of wrestling in some degree has replaced the military because there's not as many of the young boys or young men going into the military. So I think that the ones that are wrestling is that the wrestling mats and the expectations that come along with wrestling are turning these young boys into young men. And I see it every day. I saw it for many, many years when I wrestled, saw it for many, many years when I refereed, when I coached, and now as a parent, you know, I'm seeing it again. And I love seeing it. I love seeing these young boys transforming in front of my eyes to young, responsible men that shake my hand, look me in the eye, and say, "How are you doing today, Mr. Blanchard?" Sometimes I always want to look around and say, "Who next, Mr. Blanchard?" So I hope I just didn't hog all the time. Hey, what were you thinking about that?
Well, I think it's interesting. Dan gave you interesting about sibling. I think a question that you have to ask yourself, which I think you're asking, Angel, why would someone go off for basketball? Why would someone go off for football? The wrestling has one factor that the other ones do not. There are 14 weight classes. So you could be 90 pounds and still be able to compete with someone equal to you. And you tell these kids, come on, try it. Now, once they're out and they like the idea that you're helping them, it's a one-on-one. You know as well as I do, especially your heritage, hugging somebody, Hugging children is important. You get close to them. You are physically with a child who has never done this before. One of my wrestlers I had when I first coached was a natural. He came out. He weighed about 130 some pounds. Every day after practice, I worked with him. He had some talent. He went out there the first match and he won. Afterwards, his father was excited. The father was so excited that he won, he just didn't know what to say. So the son came up to me and he said, Coach, why don't you like me? I said, what do you mean? He said, you never hit me. I said, what? He said, my dad hits me and he loves me. Now, I say this for one reason. I went to the father. I'm all of 21 years old, coaching. My first experience. Of course, I've been in athletics. I've been still competing. So I told the father, I said, what do I do? Tell him or not tell him? It goes to what you're saying. I said to him, your son says that I don't hit him. You do, but you love him. He said, I don't hit him. He says, well, he had to get it somewhere. As a result, the father, I said to the son, I work with you every day after practice. You and I are alone. Nobody else is there. The father changed his attitude all year. He hugged him. No longer did he tap him. You didn't do this right. So the sport, based on why they come out, is because it's a weight class. They can fit in. The second part is, what do we do to drive get that energy out? As I told Dan, there are rules. How I fight with my neighbors, the way I grew up in the east part of Detroit, is completely different on the mat. If you're going to go to a bar and walk out and you take a wrestler stand, you're going to get hurt because there are no rules in street fight. So these kids come in, you teach them rules. You teach them how to win. They start winning, they like to win. When they lose, they learn how to lose. But what you do to them, and I coached my own son, and he did really well. But when he lost, I kissed him and gave him a hug when he went out. I hugged all my athletes, even on the college level. When they came back, draw, if they won, lost, or drew, I hugged them. My son tied one match, which was he didn't wrestle well. He's lucky he drew. He came off the mat, and I hugged him, and I said, we'll work on it tomorrow. I tell that to all my athletes. Same thing in the classroom. We'll work on it tomorrow. Not that you did something wrong. We're going to fix it. Well, it means if you fix it, you broke it. We're going to work on it tomorrow. Never a negative. So they stay with it because they learn how to win. Then they learn how to lose. And then when they get into corporate or teaching, they have a sense of understanding that not everybody can be a champion. You need to bring it out of them. And this is what I told Dan before. When I referee, it's nice when I referee, I go into a gym, a team that are adversaries, and he knows the ones in Connecticut, the two adversaries. I go in there and both coaches and the teams wrestle better. You know why? Because I'm very consistent. I apply the rules. If you do something wrong, I say, according to the rule book, that's a foul, therefore. In fact, the coach will come up, Dan knows it because he coached and refereed his team. If the coach didn't like the call, he'd come over and say something to me like, blah, 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 you screwed that call up. Yeah, I say to him, I understand your point of view, but according to the rule book, that was the call, that was the position. Now, according to the rule book, if you do this again, you better have an assistant coach because you'll be out of the gym. It's never personal, never personal. So part of that has to do with growing, working with one another, winning and losing. I told Dan, I've lost my fair share, but it makes you stronger. And even if you're not a champion, these athletes become stronger. They know how to bounce back from a loss, which I don't think you learn many times in a safe haven. And wrestling mat is a safe haven. You can't lose there. You really can't.
Yeah. And Abe, you reminded me of a story of when I was a younger coach. When you talked about the hugging, there's an incredible male bonding that goes on between the wrestlers and their coach. And a lot of these kids, you know, they may not have a father figure in their life. And if they do have a father figure in their life, they may not, chances are they're not bonding with their own father like they're going to bond with the coach. So I can remember one of my early stories when I was a young coach. I had this kid, and as Abe said, anybody can wrestle. I always say that. Anybody can wrestle, but it's not for everybody, right? So I had this kid. He was in the 95-pound weight class, and this kid was probably like 89 pounds, Angel. And he was out there getting manhandled. He was like, an underclassman, freshman, maybe sophomore. He was wrestling a kid that was probably a junior, and he was getting manhandled. And, you know, the kid weighed 95 pounds. So you may not think it's 6 pounds is a big deal, but when you're that light, 6 pounds is a big deal. So my boy, he's out there getting manhandled by this kid. And at one point, the kid grabs him and throws him, and he lands halfway across the mat, and he rolls a whole bunch of times, lands at my feet, right? And I pick him up, and I could see the fear of God in this little boy's eyes. And he's looking for the exit signs. So I say, Jason, look at me. Look at me. And I said, listen, he's leaning. Every time he steps into you, he's leaning. And I go, when he steps into you, I want you to snap him down, spin to the side, dig your head in his side, and bow and arrow cradle him, right? And then I kind of pushed him by the back, saying, go and snap him down, right? So he gets out there. The ref blows the whistle, and you can see his eyes are timid. He's not sure. He's been getting manhandled out there. The whistle blows. The kid comes right at him. You don't think he's going to finish him off, leaning with his head, right? Little teeny Jason snaps him down, spins to the side, digs his head in the kid's side, bow and arrow cradles the kid, flips him upside down, pins him, right? Ref slaps the mat. Jason stands up. The ref raises his hand, and then Jason turns and runs full speed right at me, and about 5 feet away, leaps in the air and lands on me and gives me the biggest hug I think I've ever gotten. You know what I'm saying? And he has never forgotten that moment. I ran into him a couple years ago. You know, this had to be 20, 30 years ago, whatever it was. I have never forgotten that moment, that bond that we had, you know, and those are the beautiful moments of wrestling. And there's so many of them. And as Abe knows, you know, Angel, you probably know in some capacity with the sports you've dealt with over the years, you know, there's so many ups and downs.
Oh, yeah.
But in wrestling, you know, there's so many ups and downs. But those moments, those ups, you're so elated that 30 years later, you're still talking about them on Mindalia TV. You know?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we have other, let's say, individual sports that we do at the school, but I mean, typically, I mean, the only sport in which I excelled really, and in high school was swimming. I was a good swimmer, but I was lucky because I was going to a private school and we had a nice swimming pool. But that was the exception. I mean, in my home country, we really didn't have sports. Some friends of mine were playing handball, or basketball, but not in the school. Like, again, it was outside the school. And throughout the year, I was always playing soccer myself, like soccer 7 or soccer 11, because soccer is like the national sport in Spain.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Angel, you want to know how you became a soccer fan? I went to the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, and Athens had the wrestling. Now, the guy I was staying with, I said, come on, you got to go to the wrestling with me. And he said, I'll go to the wrestling with you. That was the year Kurt Angle beat the Iranian for the gold medal for was it heavyweight or 220? I forget what it was. And he goes, I'll go to wrestling with you if you come to soccer with me. And I saw both semifinal. It was a fair trade. I saw both semifinal games of the 1996 Olympic soccer. And after that, I was hooked. Been a soccer fan ever since. And it's a good thing because all 5 of my kids have played soccer.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, Angel, the funny thing that the bonding you talked about, in Connecticut, I have a very dear friend that I've known since he was in high school. I refereed him. When he was a coach, I refereed his team, and we refereed together. He is a prosecuting attorney in Connecticut. He prosecutes murder cases, and he needed a witness from the southern part of Connecticut, the Gold Coast area, Stamford area. So the prosecuting attorney there, the DA, brought him up to Middletown, which is where a prosecuting attorney is. And he looks at the fellow and he says, the guy says, I'm not turning any of my friends. I'm not going to be a snitch. So he said, well, let me just take you into the judge's room, the courtroom, and show you. He takes them in and he says, you got a nice physical bit. What sports did you play? He said, I wrestled. So Russ takes off his jacket, his vest, his tie. He said, I wrestle at this other school, Connor. He said, I used to use this move. What move you use? They showed moves to each other. They put their jackets back on. They go out to the other DA. The witness turns to the DA and whispers something. The DA says, he'll be your witness.
Wow.
Now that's a bond because they already know each other. But that's the point Dad said about the bond. To this day, Russ says, I don't know, it must have been that wrestling area because the guy was his witness and he won the case. So you never know. You never know.
Beautiful. So we have to wrap it up now here.
Yes.
What a beautiful, I mean, you are an amazing human being, Abe, and thank you for allowing me to call you Abe, by the way. Really, thank you. You are really so amazing to be having a conversation with. Dan, I think that whenever we meet in Connecticut or somewhere else in the country, Dan, I think we're going to call Abe and we'll have a coffee, all three of us together.
Definitely.
because it's going to be fun. So again, thank you very much for being with us today and for sharing so much. And again, sports can do so much and does so much every single day in every single school in America and in all over the world for our youth and for our men. So thank you very much, Abe, for being here.
Well.
Where can we find you, by the way? Where can we find Abe if we want to reach out to you?
Just my full name, Abraham Chamie. That's Abraham's easiest. Last name is CH, as in Charles, AMIE, @yahoo.com. And that's my email. You can contact me anytime.
Easy. Awesome. And what about you, Dan?
Yeah, people can find me at danblanchard.net or granddaddysickest.com or any of the social media channels or Google Dan Blanchard. You'll find me all over the place. Check me out on Amazon. Be sure to check out my book, The Storm, How Young Men Become Good Men.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan, for bringing someone so special today. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Abe.
Thank you. So again, this is Angel Ribo. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us today. I hope that you have enjoyed our conversation as much as we have. It was a pleasure to have you here. Hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.